Hey, how's everybody doing today? I wanted to take a few minutes to talk about one of the most important decisions that every pilot must make. And that decision is selecting a certified flight instructor. So you might ask yourself, where do you find a CFI? Where do you start? I've had an opportunity to look on the internet and review a few websites. I haven't found anything that's impressed me. So I would give the advice to be very cautious on any of the reviews that you might see on the web. If you think about sites that review doctors or review college professors, so many times the opinion of the individual doing the review may not be exactly truthful, or it may not be your opinion that you would form if you had the opportunity to go to that doctor or study under that teacher. So my recommendation to you is go to your local airport or whatever small airport is close to you that has a fixed base operator or FBO. Go to that FBO, and that's where you're going to find your flight instructor. In many cases, the airports will have they'll have an online site so you can at least see what services they offer. But in most cases, the FBO will include a rental aircraft, and they will have a variety of flight instructors. So now that you found your FBO, you're really liking the folks there, you're going to talk to usually somebody behind the front counter who may or may not be an instructor, who may or may not be a pilot. So you were going to ask that person, who would I talk to about selecting an instructor pilot? That individual is either going to direct you to somebody else, or maybe they'll tell you themselves. But before you get to that point, you need to be honest with yourself. You need to take a step back and think, what type of a student am I? And this is tough because if you're new to flying, this is your first time in an aircraft, then you're probably going to be more motivated. You have made a decision to get your pilot's license, so you're motivated. If you're a more seasoned pilot, or what we refer to as a rusty pilot, someone who's been out of the cockpit for a while, you may be a little bit less motivated. So think of the type of person you are, and go back to high school algebra or high school biology. Did you like that instructor? How did you respond to those instructors? So what type of person are you? What type of learner are you? And that's something you need to think about before you go looking for your instructor pilot. When you go to the FBO, be sure to go during normal operating hours. And the reason I say this is because many FBOs have limited staff on the weekends. And maybe for some of us that are working, maybe that's really hard to do, but I highly encourage, go in there during a weekday. Go in there during normal operating hours so you can see what's kind of referred to as the A team, the folks that run the place. When you get in there, and you know what you are, you're a beginner, you're a rusty pilot, you're a seasoned pilot. When you go in there, know the type of traits you're looking for, the individual traits you want to have in an instructor. And this goes back to that high school teacher that you felt like worked really well with your personality. Traits you're looking for. Are you looking for the authoritarian type? If you're a little less motivated, it's not a bad idea to have somebody who can kind of push you harder. If you're very motivated, maybe a participative type of instructor, somebody who's more relaxed, would work better for you. And this again is something, match the personality trait of the instructor with your own personality type so that you really hit it off with the instructor. The other thing is mannerism. You can ask somebody behind the counter and say, hey, I prefer the type of instructor who has a relaxed mannerism. They're going to know what you're talking about. Also, think about how many hours do you want that instructor to have. If they have less than 1,500 hours and they're a fairly new to being an instructor, quite often the chance that they're going to be leaving the airport soon because they're trying to get hired on by a commercial carrier. 1,500 hours is sort of the magic number for most of the regional carriers now. And again, that may be okay, but if you got an instructor who has 1,400 hours, and you're trying to get your private pilot's license, it's reasonable to think that they may be gone before you get ready for your check ride or possibly even solo. So keep that in mind. How many years has that individual been flying? And that says a lot. Again, going back to the training, preparing to go to the regional airlines type of an individual, chances are they've only got a few years, maybe 5 or less in the aircraft. So if it's important to you, and this is something oftentimes I personally prefer to have someone who does have a lot of hours, somebody who's had years of experience and a lot of hours. And it's also important that not only they have a lot of hours, but that they have currency in those hours. If you have an instructor who's coming back and he hasn't flown for many years, maybe that's an instructor you want to not fly with. The other question is the ratings of the instructor. So the basic CFI is authorized to get you trained and certified through your private pilot's license. But if you're a rusty pilot or even a seasoned pilot coming back, perhaps you really want to focus more on some of your instrument work that you've been away from. So in that case, you're going to ask for a CFI or an instrument instructor. So now that we've gone through what you're looking for in an instructor, when you go in to ask for that instructor, you're going to be in a better position now, because you're going to know the traits, how many years you would like to see that your instructor's been flying for, how many hours that instructor has, and they don't have to be specific, they can be general. And as you present these to the individual there at the FBO, they're going to know which instructors will fit your requirements better. And then one other final thought is trying out different instructors. Now, for the private pilot's license student who's just getting started, most of the times the instructor will be a constant. So it's not quite as important here, although I do recommend before you go for your check ride with the FAA examiner, fly with another instructor pilot at least once. Okay, now that you've got your instructor, you need to make sure that from the beginning, and this doesn't matter whether you're a beginner pilot, a rusty pilot, or a seasoned pilot getting your proficiency check, you need to make sure that that instructor and you have developed a training plan. And that training plan is based on time and number of hours. And again, it's a plan. So it may be that you had planned for 10 hours, but it ended up taking 15. We train to standard, not to time. So having a plan from the get-go gives you a baseline to work off of. Before every flight and after every flight, make sure that you and that instructor have a pre-flight briefing and a post-flight briefing. In the pre-flight briefing, you're going to talk about all the maneuvers you're going to be working on for that flight. After the flight's over, an opportunity to now look at the procedures you did, get the feedback from your instructor, and share your thoughts. And the final part of it is to check against that initial plan that you developed together. Where are you in relationship to that plan? I had planned to be proficient within 10 hours. I'm now at 9.5 hours. Let's revisit. Maybe I need a couple more hours. Maybe I need to work on slow flight, approaches, landings. That's what it's about. Make sure that you maximize that time with the instructor, and you will be so rewarded when it's over, because you will have had the best instructor that's right for you, and your money will be well invested to improve your proficiency and become a better aviator.